Welcome, Chris Evans Radio. We are back with little Dave, and it's in the afternoon, so it's not in the dark for me, like always.
Yeah,
So our
super
off days are
bright
gone. So
here. I
like,
mean, we just had daylight savings.
I know.
Yesterday it
Yes.
was funny. I left the gym yesterday and I
Mhm.
was like, well, I guess this is nice because it's not dark right now.
Right. Yeah.
That time of year we're getting over that time of year where it's just dark every time I'm out.
Right.
I
Yeah.
wake up in the morning, it's dark, and I get home at night, it's dark.
Mhm. That's something you and I think talked about a couple days ago, and that was, with the time change, it shows you how much our bodies can be programmed, right? Like sleep is weird because you're like, oh man, like why am I not tired? Why is the sun still up? And then you wake up at a different time, or it almost feels like you wake up an hour late. And then for me, I know you said you feel the same way. It's like your meal times just feel off for 2 to 3 days. And it's because they are.
Mm.
It's because 8 o'clock isn't really 8 o'clock. It should be, what's that, 7? And it's like, oh, my body's not ready to eat yet. Like, it's, and then on the flip side of that, I'm already felt like I'm used to it. So, and again, it just shows you like you just have a couple days of being uncomfortable or feeling out of place, and then your body adapts really quickly to that new mealtime. Um,
Mhm.
the problem is you just can't get behind, and
Yeah,
hey, I need to get this meal in. I need to train at 12. So again, that to me kind of comes down to like just prioritizing and strategizing the best way to eat. And for us in the off season, well, not you in the off season anymore, but which your food is still high, so it's not easy to smash food anytime, but it's still like, hey, it's time to freaking eat. I eat and I move about my day.
yeah.
I mean, that's the way you,
Well, it's funny too because like if you travel and you get a one thing, whenever I go see you, it's a solid time jump.
yes,
So it's actually funny that first like day, I'll usually see you and you're on meal 4 and I'm on meal 3,
yep,
and I have to do something wacky to catch back up. Like
hmm
I'm like eating a meal like pretty like like right 2 hours. I'll be like 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, just so I can get them in.
yep,
And but it's funny when I travel for like if I travel for vacation and time is not a matter, I will just eat on my schedule
yes,
because it doesn't fucking matter. Because I'd rather not deal with the Ani thing than just like if when I went to Vegas for USA's, we had a time change for whatever, and all my meals I did not give a shit what the clock said. I was like, I'm gonna eat it when my normal hunger cues are,
yes, yep.
and I think that's like an underrated thing where a lot of people probably don't realize that, especially as if they travel someone and they're peaking for a show, because that plays a big role in there, and it's like that's the last thing you want to do is push your body a direction it doesn't want to go,
Right.
you know. So just you can do just not even think about time, just be like, this is where I normally eat, and how does that correlate to where we're gonna supposed to be,
Yes.
and stay on your schedule, right? That's because it's your body, it's not,
Yep.
you know.
What's funny is that's the way in the off season, at least, I treat my off days.
Yeah,
It, I try to sleep in as late as I can. And then whenever I wake up, I'll do my morning routine. I'll come answer emails. And then whenever my body's like, hey, it's time to eat now, I'll just start, right? Where on a training day, I have, or at least for me, I have to be very regimented, like meal one at 7, meal two at 9:30, train at 12, usually eat by 2:30, 5, and then it just goes as the day goes, right? Like
mm-hmm.
only because to me, like that schedule makes me feel very peace and at home. And I get really pissed off when that changes. Like Friday really
Yeah,
fucked with me only because I train with Chris at 11. So it's an hour earlier than I'm used to doing. So all that has to get shoved up an hour. But again, not a big deal. Like you just make it work because I want that newbie, and that's when he can see me. And the good news with that with him is normally we are done training in 40 minutes, and then I'm ravenous afterwards. So it's like it makes the rest of my day cake.
yeah,
All season when my food's high. So, there's a little bit of pros and cons to that. But, you know, what you just said about when you travel, like if you have no other schedule to be on, just let your body dictate that and don't necessarily force it, because then you're gonna have to force it right back when you go home.
exactly.
And again, as we've said many times, like we want stress to be minimal outside of the gym. So that's how we grow. All right. So transitioning to a cool topic that I told you I thought would be really interesting and intriguing, and I know people have asked me this a handful of times, is like, Chris, if you could go back and start bodybuilding over from day one, what would you change? What would you do differently? What would you keep the same? What did you figure out? What did you nail? So I'm gonna let you start and just maybe talk about like the things like low hanging fruit first, and then we can get like really nitty gritty with the things we really like could have done better but didn't know.
Yeah. Well, you sent me this text early. I was thinking about this since like 5:30. Uh, and honestly, the only thing I would change
Well,
is being less stubborn and letting people help me.
right.
When
Yep.
I first started this, so 2012 was the direction, was when I realized I was like, I want to do this bodybuilding thing.
Well,
To the extent of bodybuilding I knew.
yes, yes.
Like I did not know bodybuilding. Like I didn't even know people. There was local competitions. I just didn't know. So I was just like, I'm lifting weights. I'm gonna grow. I'd seen pictures of Jay Cutler, never in person, right?
Yep.
And then so I was like, but I'm gonna do it my way.
Right.
And what in reality, like there was a lot of wheel spinning between when I signed on with you in 2012 to 2017.
Mhm.
Like I put on 40-ish pounds of muscle since that point,
Yeah.
but a lot of it is just me being stubborn.
Right.
Like when I first started training, like I've told you this, I trained 15 times a week
Yep.
because I fucking loved it.
Right. Right.
No one could tell me differently. I
Yeah.
had I had multiple people be like, "That's too much." I'd be like, "Yeah," he goes, you that's why you're small, you know.
Yeah.
And if I honestly, if I let people help me, because it was legitimately that's the only aspect of what would have made me better
Mhm.
is honestly letting people in and listening to them.
Right. Yeah.
Finding a coach, doing things that way versus just being stubborn and acting like I know everything because
Yeah.
I've read all of the things I could have on the internet.
Right. Yeah. You know, I feel like mine is very similar, right? So when I stopped playing football, I was lost and I needed something, right? I knew I needed something and I was like, huh, like this whole like getting bigger thing is cool. Like I want to see what happens. So like you, like I didn't even remotely dream. I wasn't like some of those guys who are out there and like, oh, I'll be Mr. Olympia one day. That was the last thing. I never even dreamed about putting posing trunks on
Yeah, it
until,
never really crossed my mind. I just thought it looked cool.
yeah, yeah, I just knew I wanted to be way bigger than I was. And I was
Hmm.
like, okay, cool. Like, how do I do that? So, most ready available source at the time was Muscle magazines and the just like the starting of like the internet with bodybuilding.
Yep.
And I remember I'd go on muscular development and they would post literally the entire training session of like Evans and Depani, and then they would be doing a voiceover interview with Dave Palumbo. So the whole workout, I'm talking warm-up sets, everything. Those videos were like 2 hours long. And I would just sit on my computer and just watch it and take notes. And like that's where my early bodybuilding began. So I was dumb as shit. Like I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, ooh,
Hmm.
that's an arm workout and that's a chest workout. Okay, I'm gonna go do both of those in the gym. So I go train chest for 2 hours, which was stupid, and then go train arms for an hour.
Yeah.
So, like you, I was just ramming shit in. I was like, man, this is so much fun. Like, with no real thought to nutrition other than listen, it was a seafood diet, right? I knew you had to eat a fuckload of protein because everyone talked about protein, protein, protein. Okay, cool. Just eat as much protein as you can, and then just whatever carbs you get in your mouth, you can, because at that time, fat was the devil.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny because I was bodybuilding.com, I think, legitly got made in 2013.
Yeah, right.
And I remember they released the Jay Cutler program
Mhm.
and his diet.
Right.
And dude, I copied that diet gram for gram.
Right.
And I ate that for like a month.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it was comical because like there was like 4 meals of like 10 ounces of chicken and like 400 grams of rice.
Mhm.
And I was like 130 pounds.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I mean, so that was like the beginning of my bodybuilding. And I was really fortunate, right? I got this giant dude kind of take me under his wing and kind of show me his way. And I just kind of copied him, right? Like I saw how he ate, I saw how he lived. So, meal one was a shitload of egg whites and oatmeal
Mhm.
with cinnamon. So, like, literally, I made this huge ass bowl of like scrambled egg whites and I made a bowl of oatmeal. And then I dumped the egg whites in there and started up and ate it like Ronnie
Yeah.
Coleman used to do those grits, right? That thing felt like a brick in your stomach. Like, it felt horrible.
I did the same thing, but I also added peanut butter, so it made it worse.
Oh, right. Right.
It's
Then,
usually like, wow, I just ate concrete.
right. Yeah. So I want you to think about this. So my next meal was chicken, brown rice, and broccoli.
Yeah.
Horrible. Horrible. Right.
You're like crunching on the brown rice.
Yo,
God damn,
God, it
dude.
was
That was one of the hardest things. I realizing I didn't need to eat white rice was like the best thing that's ever happened. Like,
great.
I probably have gone through 25, like a couple, like 25-pound bags of brown rice.
Right.
And I haven't touched them in like 8 years.
I have neither. Right. Yeah. I don't know how honestly I was getting that down. They used to make those ones at that I get at Kroger. So it's like boiling the bagged brown rice.
Oh, yeah.
300 grams of brown rice. You cook it in the microwave for like 8 minutes. And oh God, it was so awful. And you pair it with broccoli, even worse. Stupid
Oh,
idea.
yeah. But yeah. That's probably why I don't eat any vegetables. Is that actual meal. So
Right.
I did this, and that for me, that meal always fell at like that was meal two was 9:30, 10-ish.
Right.
So I'm eating that cold
Yeah.
at a construction working site,
Yeah. Yep.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Like that meal was so goddamn hard to eat.
Right. Oh yeah. Yep. So then I'm trying to think. So my next meal, then I'd have a protein shake, 60 grams, by the way,
Yeah,
unneeded, with a cup of raw oats that I would let it soak in there all day. So I'd have a chocolate protein shake with those oats soaking in that all day, right? So
yeah,
you shake it up, and at noon I'd smash it, and then it was 2 cups of blueberries. And listen, that tasted like blueberries were good. Like that was a good choice. And
yeah.
then pre-lift, so I would do 1 scoop of Inno Explode, right? And then 2 cups of that applesauce. You know that those like kids cups of
Oh
applesauce?
yeah, yeah,
Smash it. And so that was pre-lift because you had to have all those carbs that get shuttled, right?
yeah,
Wasn't using insulin, right? So that didn't make any sense. But okay, cool. And then post-lift, it was like always a protein shake and then a white bread with honey and banana on it.
yeah,
It's pretty good. I'll take that meal. And then we would go, and it was always this dude told me he's like, listen, you gotta eat Chinese food like right after your post lift meal settles. So it was like tons of fried rice and general chicken for me. And then at night it was as much ground beef and sweet potato as you could eat. So as a whole, if you look at that, that was so much fiber.
yeah,
And I remember thinking, like, why am I always so stuffed and full? But, again, just being young and like wanting to attack. And if you notice, like, this was before the time of measuring, like for me at least. Like I didn't measure anything other than if you count measuring like oats with a cup measure. Um, if I even remotely had a thing of peanut butter, it was like a tablespoon, and it was like you literally grab a spoon, like the small spoon, scoop it out, and that was this
yeah.
extent of my measuring.
Back when a tablespoon of peanut butter was as much peanut butter you could fit on the spoon.
Right.
Yep, that's good.
Yes,
Glop.
right. So if you look at that like early iteration is like, and then of course that was back when you had a cheat day. So like if you hit all those meals all week, he was like, all right, man, on Saturday or Sunday, you can eat whatever, like literally just shove in as much food as you want. So listen, I didn't have a great appetite then by any means. And it was just like I'd stuff myself the first 3 meals and just be miserable the rest of the day. And I
Yeah,
would turn into drinking protein shakes because that's all I could get down. Um, but so if you think about like that, for me, from perspective of that, is like I needed someone to kind of like teach me nutrition. And what's
yeah,
really funny is when I look back at my early bodybuilding, like I always gravitated toward I'd read every sentence of training in those magazines and I'd watch it all online. But when it came to nutrition, man, like I was just like, ugh, like I don't like it. It didn't intrigue me as much because I really believed in my heart at the time, like the secret's training and taking my over-the-counter GNC supplements. Like I really believe that, which, you know, I wished I'd have had someone set me down and be like, hey, Chris, like, nutrition is more than just like shove your face full of food and figure it out. Now, what's funny is through eating all of that, and like, listen, on that cheat day, you would just eat whatever. And he was always a big believer, like, hey, if you get all your food down, like, don't be scared to have like bowls of cereal before bed. So I was still relatively lean. Like, that's how fast my metabolism was at a young age. If I ate like that now, I'm sure I'd be fat as shit at 40. But, in terms of your nutrition, so you said you just pounded Jay Cutler's diet until your stomach said no?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, dude. I remember his post workout. He had a post workout like intermediate meal,
Mhm.
which was 2 full-size Gatorades
Okay.
and 60 grams of protein from whey.
That's a lot of liquid.
And I think about that still all the time because
Right.
by the time I got home to have the meal, dude, I was still fucking full because I just drank 2 Gatorades and another like shaker cup of protein.
And that was when protein was like milk based, and you couldn't
Yeah,
mix it with one of those Gatorades.
no,
Like it would
exactly.
almost been more palatable if you could mix all that into one drink and it tasted decent. You know,
Yeah,
like that wouldn't have been as horrible,
no.
or I wouldn't think at least. But do you find, that's a good question to kind of go into is have you ever found that clients that either don't want to invest the money in intra workout and use Gatorade that they have severe digestive issues after a while?
Yeah, especially well, some of like depends on how big they are.
Okay. Yes.
The some of the small if I use a bikini girl in the off season and have her give her intra workout carbs, shit, I might as well just give her Gatorade powder because it's gonna be really cheap because she's gonna need 10 to 20 grams
Right.
tops.
Yeah.
Like she's not gonna ever need 40, 60 grams of carbs
No.
like we sometimes do,
Yeah.
you know. And at that point, it's like that works really well. But if you're talking about off season full like open bodybuilder, like above 30, they're like we've all done this actually. People just don't pay attention to it, right? If you remember when you were a kid, you made Kool-Aid
Hmm.
and you chugged a whole bunch of it and then you got fucking stomach ache.
Oh yeah.
That's exactly what you're doing with the intra workout. Like our body has a process where it sees a high level of sugar happen and it stops it from processing. It just holds on to it. And if you do that while you're training, you're gonna legitimately hate life.
Oh yeah. Yep. Agreed.
And that's where the fancy carbs come in play. You don't need a ton of them. Like you can
No.
definitely blend. Like you can do part intra, the Grand Intra, part Gatorade, or coconut water, like blends of that to hit your carbs. But like when it comes down to it, like you might as well spend the money because it's one of those things where it is definitely going to affect your workout.
It's I know I told you this off air before. So back when I was using biotest and test running plasma for them with John, I was working with Shelby at the time. He was like, let's just see how high we can push that since I don't have to pay for it. And we got me to 90 grams of carbs from plasma. So for you guys who don't know what plasma is, it's the amino acid they use in there is hydrolyzed caseinate. So it's crazy expensive protein that's in it. And then for the carbs, it's a mixture of like clusterdestrin and highly branched silodestrin. So it's a really expensive product. So we try to take those as high as 90 for me. And I told you this, like we found that once we got that high, like I'd have to go to the bathroom mid workout. And it was
Mhm.
just like straight water just coming out of you aggressively. And like your
Mhm.
stomach would like you would feel it. And it was like it wasn't like, oh, let me get one more set. It was like if you don't go to the bathroom, like the next set, you're gonna have to go change clothes and take a shower.
Yeah.
So even when you have what I will view as probably the upper echelon, like Bugatti fucking intra workout, there is a ceiling. And like for me, on a young guy at that time who couldn't eat as much as I needed to grow in my mind, Like if I can drink something and it goes down quick and tastes good, like hell yeah, bring it on. Like that's if I'm being brutally honest with you, that's why I started taking intra workout was because I couldn't get another meal in. And I was like, well, I'm going to drink water while I train. So intra workout made a ton of sense to me, right?
Yeah.
Before I met John.
Yeah.
So I started using intra solely to get calories in. And that this was back in the day of before plasma. I was doing Vitargo because I'd seen a really, really old Jeff Long video where he was using those with intra workout with essential aminos and creatine. So I was like, "Ooh, fuck yeah!" Like I don't know, have you ever had Vitargo?
Mhm.
It like clumped like Jolly
Yeah.
Ranchers. Like it was pretty
Yeah.
enjoyable. A lot too.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yes. It pretty much like that consistency.
Yeah, and I can't remember for the life of me what brand I used, but it was this like strawberry watermelon flavor. Oh, it was delicious. Um and so like that kind of led me into learning about intra workout. And then when I met and linked up with John, then he got me with biotest, and that kind of forever changed my opinion on intra and the quality of it and beginning to think about it. So
Yeah.
I will tell a little bit of evolution since we were talking about Gatorade. If you guys have ever seen like some old posts of me like jokingly put secret sauce and it's like a bunch of fucking fluid that was like red or blue or green or purple, like that was a mixture of recovery, Gatorade, and that was just a boost carbs through the freaking roof and then use it with insulin, right? So
Mhm.
secrets exposed. So
Right.
that was like the halfway between John and Milo's technique.
Hmm.
Again, it's very effective. So if you did like two scoops of two or one and a half scoops of recovery, which is going to give you anywhere between 30 or 40 grams of carbs. You do a full 20-ounce Gatorade, put some creatine in there, and fill it with water and ice. The pump is bananas. I mean, I've had you do
Yeah.
wild, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we all have most of us have functioning pancreases,
Right,
and that work that you're gonna get a pump from that just from doing that. And when you add in extra insulin,
right.
like that's just that one's just like you might as well like why wouldn't you? It's like the most
Right.
the, you know what I mean? If you have places to add insulin in, right? It's
Yep.
like, oh cool, I'm actively gonna be drinking sugar.
Yeah.
It's gonna help me recover better, and I'm gonna get a better pump in the gym.
Yep.
Versus like if you're gonna add it in one place, legitimately any other meal, is it gonna do all three of those things? Probably to some degree,
Right.
but not to the degree of that. And
Yep.
you know,
And it tastes good. Like literally
hmm
thing that taste is so amazing to me.
yeah,
Blue Crush with like blue raspberry Gatorade. Oh my God, I could drink that literally all day long if I wanted to. Uh,
yeah,
that's how, just for the flavor perspective, not of I wouldn't do that, but if I wanted to shut down my pancreas as fast as possible, I just do that all day.
yeah. You're like, yeah, I just have my blood sugar's just sitting at 140 the entire day.
Right. Just constantly anabolic. Not need to eat. Right. Okay, that's a joke. Please do not, God, do not do that. It does not work. I don't recommend it. We're being retardedly silly. Like, stop it.
What was that? Was that like a Dave Tate? Who was that? Who had a Hershey's bar every hour on the hour for
Dude,
powerlifting?
yeah. Uh,
Same category.
correct. I think he also had a cool post where he's like, I can't remember what the whole meal plan was, but I remember the final meal of the night was an extra large pizza with Domino's with 3 tablespoons of olive oil dumped on top of it. Like,
Yeah.
can you imagine how heavy that sits? Listen, there's no way you're sleeping on your stomach after eating that meal.
No.
If you're like me, like, and have eaten to the point where you're miserable, like, you're literally gonna sit in like the fetal position in your bed on the side with a fan blowing directly in your face, sweating like a fat kid. I guarantee you that's
Yeah.
happening.
I would love just to watch someone try to explain that meal to a normal person.
Right.
Like, why are you adding olive oil to your pizza?
Right. Yeah.
You're like, well,
Just
calories per square inch here.
and if you're obsessive like you and I are, of course he says, drizzle it on there. But then like if it starts to leak on the plate, like you almost have to mop that up with the crust, I would assume. Like
Yeah.
you have to get it in because I'm not gonna waste olive oil.
Yeah.
But I guess that maybe speaks to our obsessiveness. because you don't want to miss those 21 grams of fat that you drizzle on top. So,
Yeah.
or no, I guess it's tablespoons. So whatever 14 times 3 is. Oh, yeah, that's a lot more
Like
than,
45.
yeah, there you go. All right, so back to the topic at hand. All right, things I would change. I think in the grand scheme of life, when I look back at it, even though I truly believe that I learned something very uniquely from prepping myself and then hiring Shelby, hiring Matt Porter, and then going to John, I think in the grand scheme of life, if I would have just started with John when I was super young, full time, like, because when I started with John, I was just doing
Yeah.
his training programs, and then going to train with him in person. I wasn't doing his nutrition. And in hindsight, looking back, I think that would have saved me a lot of time. And I'm not saying that the other two didn't teach me and I didn't learn, I didn't get better and better off of them. But I think like you, where you've only had one coach, I think that would have been very beneficial to just give him
Yeah.
more time learning my body, especially when I was younger, you know?
Yeah.
And because him and I had a really good like bond off the get-go, like we just meshed and clicked very well. Where with Shelby, it was very robotic. It was black and white. Here's your plan. Do this, do that. I never met him in person. I never talked to him on the phone. Never did a FaceTime. Nothing. It was just straight emails back and forth.
Yeah.
And listen, I wasn't at that point in my bodybuilding. Like I didn't need someone to like hold my hand and baby me. I love that shit so much. Like just tell me the way. I'll do it. He made it simple as shit, and I followed the plan.
Yeah.
So I
Well, I mean,
think
that's
that.
like 99% of the game, right?
Yep.
Like, that's if you have a coach, bodybuilding is legitimately your ability to follow the plan.
Mhm. Yep.
It really is that simple.
Mhm.
And
And
I've shown that for years. I've legitimately shown you that for years. You know what I mean?
and you've said that before, right? It's like you hired me to give you a plan and your job is to execute. And that's exactly how I viewed coaching, which is why
Yeah.
you and I clicked. It's because you weren't expecting anything else out of me. You didn't expect me to post you online. You didn't expect me to like pick up the phone and call you every three minutes that you needed an update. It was, Chris, what's the plan? I want to grow. I need to get bigger. Chris, what's the plan? I
Yeah.
need to get shredded. All right, cool, done. That's literally it. And that old school-esque type of coaching, very reminiscent of like, early Chad Nichols days. And they'll even talk about it now, like that's the same way he is. Like, very rarely in the coaching world do you ever get a dynamic like Hani gives his like athletes, right? But he only has like five. So it's a much different coaching
Yeah.
style, you know. So I knew Shelby was super popular and knew how to knew how to get people shredded, and that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
So do that, get me peeled. And then I was using John with training. And then, like I said, like him and I always clicked. So I would send him my updates and like photos and progress. And he knew what I was doing nutritionally. And like that's how that progressed. But in hindsight, like I worked the best with John. And
Mhm.
that's only because I just had a connection, right? It
Yeah.
just worked.
Yeah.
Uh, which is why I always stress that to people is like, there are great coaches all over the world, but you have to find the one that works for you. And it's not meaning that anyone else is awful or dog shit, or I don't really think there is a best coach because everyone's personality is so different. You
Yeah.
know, you may love what I do, and you might talk to someone else like Chris is fucking hot garbage. you know,
Right.
do I think that I'm trash? No, but I think I don't mesh with certain personalities well. I don't think I coach certain people well. And it may
I
just
did. I know for a fact I don't because, like, well, like you, I'm pretty honest. And if someone sends me something mediocre, like, it's just gonna be like, really, that was like, how can we make this better? You know what I
correct.
mean?
Yes.
And that's usually where my like, I never really give out too many compliments. Like, they're if they're there, they're meaningful. But
Yes.
like, if someone like I do not mesh well with the clients who are like, what am I like? They ask you for like a positive when they haven't done anything positive.
Right.
You know, they're like, I nailed my food 5 out of 7 days this week, and I did part of my cardio, and I missed 2 training sessions. And you're like, dude, that's a fucked week. And
Yeah.
they're like, it was my best. And I was like, okay, well, let's figure out what's happening here, because that, you know, That's me and you do not align on what best means.
No, that is, I will always think about that as like, I will always push back on this. Like, that was your best?
Mhm.
Then I need to either lower my expectations or you need to raise yours.
Yeah,
Like, it's as simple as that. Like,
yeah,
I don't ever, I won't say ever. Because there's a few plans that I've created where I'm like, man, like this is gonna take work. Like you're gonna have to get after this. And I realize
yeah,
that not everyone may want this stuff as much as you and I do. When it comes down to it, they may say audibly it is, but you and I both know like there are certain people that just aren't about this life. And I'm always drawn back to something as simple as this, right? I don't understand missing cardio for the week. And I'll explain it this way. If John had written on my program 5 sessions of cardio at 30 minutes, and I had missed all 4 of those, and it's Saturday, I'm doing all 5 sessions on Saturday. And I don't care if I have to train or not. Because I'm not reporting to him on Monday that I had 4 missed cardio sessions. So if that means I put my laptop up on my fucking treadmill and I get to walking, I'm gonna put a movie on or a Netflix series and I'm just gonna get at it.
yeah.
What
Well,
it
and the thing is, you're also not the person who's going to let it get there.
yeah. Oh, yes.
That's the biggest difference.
Yes.
Like, I know for a fact, like when you are in prep, you're getting ready for something, you more. I know if I asked you to be like, "Hey, you want a burger?" You would more want you'd say yes to chopping off your dick quicker than cheating on your diet.
Yep.
And most people they'd be like, they're gonna look for every single excuse to why they can have something
Mhm.
versus for every excuse why they are following their plan.
Yep.
You know,
You
and
know,
it's that is the mindset when a lot of people you can get them there, but a lot of people, if something comes up, when it's either do my cardio or don't do my cardio and do something else. That's why they miss cardio.
yep.
And we're talking about 30 minutes in a day. Like, really, it's it's the trade-offs you're going to have are going to be minimal because you either need to find a way to do cardio at home,
Yep.
not spend 2 hours getting ready, going to the gym, doing cardio, chatting with the bros, and then coming home. Like, that's why that's why cardio is so difficult to do. Like, just fucking go outside and take a walk,
Yep.
you know but different tangent, but like finding reasons why to do it versus reasons why not to do it
Yeah.
is where that works.
Mhm. So when we were in Pittsburgh, I went down to that gym that was in our apartment building
Yeah,
and that assault bike. That was hard as fuck, by the way. It was
yeah.
not lift cardio. So it was not. I tried to go slow, but you had to push that thing so hard, like my quads were on fire. So what I
Yeah.
would do is I'd go 5 minutes on that bike, relatively aggressively, not hit, but you had to get after it. My heart rate was up. I'd get off the back of that bike, walk out that garage door, and walk one strap up and down that long road or street that we stayed on, all the way down, all the way back to the street, in there, get back on the bike. And I literally just hit start on my watch. I think my cardio was at 35 minutes at that point. And I did that every day until it was over. Was it perfect or what I was used to? No, I didn't care. I wasn't going to get in the car and go drive. Was it? I think it took us what 10, 15 minutes to get to the gym.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll make this work. It doesn't matter. It'll be a little bit
Yeah.
faster than I'm used to. I'll go back. I'll be in a better spot. Like I didn't let it stress me out. I didn't let it give me any guilt. Like the day after your show, we both got up and did cardio. Then we drove to the gym, did cardio because at that point you needed to move and I needed to do mine.
Hmm.
You didn't have to do nearly as long as I did. So I finished my shit out while you were doing abs and things. And I came and joined you when we went home. Like I didn't think about it. The night after your show, we went out. You got a meal. It wasn't, oh, you're not gonna eat anything. No, you knew I was getting a Diet Coke or a water and call it a fucking night.
Hmm.
Get back to the room, make my final meal, go to sleep. It's
It was a
simple.
really good Diet Coke, though, actually.
Yes. Oh yeah, that was a good diet soda. I think I sucked down like 1 or 2, maybe 3. I can't remember at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it would have been so easy for me to justify that in my mind because
Oh,
that
yeah.
point, I can't remember if I'd had to look at the fucking calendar. It was over 8 weeks out.
Yeah.
could have justified it, right? I knew we were going to train back hard as hell that next day. I could have said every excuse in the book to say, you know what, I'm gonna eat this meal with them, celebrate, get up, do cardio the next day, train back, fly home, be done. But in my heart, I wouldn't have been able to sleep at night knowing that I did that.
Mhm.
And listen, no one else would have known but me and you.
Yeah.
But that's the most important. How poor or shitty of an example would that have been setting for you? And then for me, I would have been restless that whole fucking day or
Yeah.
night, whatever you want to say, the day after. Because again, as I said when we were talking about the cardio example, I hold myself to a higher standard. Like I am by no one of the things that I think I got really lucky with early in my bodybuilding is I realized my genetics were not good. Like I realized that hey, I'm meant to be skinny and my
Mhm.
body wants to be that. And there's one way around it, and that's to eat through it and train through it. Everything else I'll figure out along the way. Because at the end of the day, I really believe this, and I think you do too. Like success almost teaches us nothing
Mhm.
in a certain respect. Failure, I will learn from that every single time.
Yeah.
You know, like if you would have went and won North Americans and turned pro, your goals wouldn't have changed. You would have still had to get bigger. You still have
Yeah.
ways to eat more food and still find ways to train harder, right? I,
Yeah.
I believe that in my heart. Like the goal is still always the same. Even if you would have went and won the Olympia, goals are the same. Bigger, better, and then ways to do it.
Yeah.
And to me, like that's a main reason why I say like I wanted to preface with I've learned something from every coach I worked with, and I value that time and
Yeah.
effort and energy. And even though I mean I've said it publicly before, like in hindsight, Shelby had me on way too much fat. It taught me a very valuable lesson. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
known that if I'd never to push fat that high.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
always
dude,
been
it's
like,
the
what?
same thing with like when I was doing things my own myself. I had written my own meal plan. I can't tell you how many times I went over somewhere, went over to a girl's house, and I brought my fucking Tupperwares with me and threw it in her fridge. And she's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Chicken and fucking rice."
Yep.
She's like, "You sure you want to eat the? You don't want to go out and eat with me?" I was like, "No, I'm here for business." But like, but you
Right.
know what I mean? Like
Yep.
doing that and not having that was me doing that without anybody telling me to, right?
Yes.
How much easier is it to do it when you have a accountability to someone?
Mhm.
You know
Yep.
what I mean? And learning to do that just for the sheer sake of making progress,
Mhm.
right? Because every single person can argue, well, it's one meal. It exactly. You know what I mean? That's one meal I don't want to have to think about.
Yes. Yep. Agreed. Like, so I would always take like major pride in this. If I was in a prep and John invited me up to train, you walk through, so he had hit their old house that Mary and them just got out of, had this huge like open doorway to walk through. And his office was like right on the other side of it. So I'd text him, hey, almost there. Usually I'd stop and piss, but I'll be there in 20 minutes. So he let me in the house. Every time that I was in prep, he would be like, man, you're leaner than your photos look. The first thing he would say, or he'd say, fuck, your face is sunk in. Look at all those forearm veins. I took so much pride in that because, like you said, he wasn't doling out confidence. It just they weren't there. You had to
Mhm.
earn that shit. So if he like
Yeah.
had me on the back and said, good set, man, I knew I went after it. Like I wanted him when we stripped down to be like, okay, we're ahead of where your pictures look like, but we got to do this, this, and this. These two, three areas aren't ready yet. We got to hammer them. Here's how we're going to do it. Hey, your back double isn't opening up. Here's what we got to do to fix it. Like it was always him assess and fix, assess, fix, assess, fix. And that's very much the way I coach you, right? It's like
Mhm.
we don't really celebrate a lot. We realize and acknowledge progress, but at the same time, it's always like, okay, cool, like you're better, but this needs to be better.
Yeah.
Hey, let's add more size. This, fill in the blank. How can we do it? How can we keep your digestion on point? How can we keep your waist small? Like all those things are always assesses. And like I always knew when I went to train with him, he's gonna give me like brutal honesty. And you can ask anyone who ever met with him in person, like, he's viewed as a very nice guy, and that's because he was very nice. But those of us that, and I've been around him a lot when he coached his pros, like he would give you the truth. Like he would pepper some compliments, but it was like he would always say, Chris, that white boy back of yours, we got to fix it. Your back's it's horrible. We have to fix it. Yeah, I know. All right, let's do it. Let's go to the gym and fix it. So, like, it's the same premise. So many people will allow that to just break them. Man, I just get
Mhm.
pissed off at it. Like, I'll never forget. We were in American Barbell one day, and we were on that shitty Arsenal row that's heavy as hell. Have you ever used that?
Yeah.
You have to put your feet like almost all the way to the front of that platform. It feels like you're going to topple over.
Yeah.
So it's me, him, and James Seals, his old training partner. And man, those dudes they know how to row weight. So we were up to 5 plates on that thing. And I'm like, fuck, I better strap my belt on tight for this. I thought I was going to blow my back out. They both like crush a set of 10. I get to 8 and it's a miserable 8. And like I get pissed off and throw the thing down and like rip 2 plates off of it. And he's like, what's wrong with you? Did you hurt your back? I'm like, fuck no, I'm pissed off because I didn't do it. So I strap back in and just go. And he looked at me and he was like, Jesus Christ. Like, I first of all I thought you blew your back out. Second, he's like, I love how you just get angry at it and just go. There's no thinking. Nothing to think about. You too just put on a damn clinic on how to do that and made me look like a child.
Yeah.
Unacceptable. You may have rode more weight than me, but I'm gonna get that set one way or the other.
Mhm.
That's just a fucking mindset. Like, I'd sadly seen a handful of people train with them where they just gave pathetic effort. And I'd always think, like, this dude is a legend in bodybuilding, and that's the effort you gave him.
Right.
Stop. Like, and I guess in my mind, like what I probably think about is whatever someone trains with me like, that's going to be as hard as they ever go. Right. So
Mhm.
imagine what the normal person who trains weak with him, what they do when they get home. It's probably even more pathetic.
Yeah. Oh,
Now, on
100%.
the side, when you come in to train with me, I know like what you give me is what you give me at home. I don't doubt that. Not
Mhm.
at this point. Maybe that first back session, I was like, let's fill them out. Let's see what this shit looks like. But after that session, I knew it was up. You knew how to get it.
Yeah.
And I had sensed that before I would never have invited you to come stay if I didn't think that was a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Had. And the shit, man, I can't tell you how many times like he would have me like if he had clients that were near me who would be like, hey, come test them out and tell me what they got. Chris Schaub will tell you that shit all the time. John had me test him out in a chest and shoulders one day to see if he was worthy to come train with him.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I told Chris when we started, I was like, this is the test, right? And he was like, what do you mean? It's like, John said, you better impress me or you ain't working with him.
I love that.
Yes. Yeah. Because listen, at that point, he knew I knew it was up. Like, I'd give it to him straight.
Yeah.
Very similarly, I don't know if you remember that video where he shot with Milos and Luke Carroll out in
Oh, yeah.
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 So he calls me because he knew like Milos was like an idol of mine. And I was like, tell me, what was it like? He's like, we've done harder shit at Elite. I was like, cool. I was like, you think I'd have no problem? He's like, no problem. He's like, the effort you give, no issue. And like, that means something, right?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, like, John was always an old school bodybuilder. He was almost 10 years older than me. Like, I valued that he understood I knew what it was like to get after it. Because he had seen, God, how many people train with him and that kind of stuff, which at this point in your lifting career, I'm sure now when people train with you, they get that same feeling like, oh, that was Dave approved,
Yeah.
or it wasn't. And you're going to tell them
Yeah.
if it wasn't.
Yeah. Super true.
I mean, let me ask you this. Like, do you almost hesitate when someone asks you to join a session, or do you usually welcome it?
I usually hesitate.
See, I'm the same way.
Usually, there's a ton of times people ask to train. I'll be like, I'm not sure you'll want to. Actually, the last I had a kid ask me to train for arms,
Okay.
and he just left. Like, I kid you not. He like we got through. Do you know that superset you had me doing of overhead tricep extensions and then superset with dumbbell tricep extensions?
Yep. Oh, it's hard.
Absolutely
Hard, hard.
gnarly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he's like, oh, I have to use the bathroom. and then he never came back. And I was like, that was an arm day, dude.
Yeah. You know, I'm sure you've seen this. I've seen people post on Instagram. It's like training arms at 4 o'clock. Who wants to join me? I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
that would give me so much stress and anxiety because I'm like, who's it going to be? What's their work ethic going to be like? Am I going to have to teach them? Like,
yeah,
I'm sure you're this way. Like, I don't mind giving some coaching cues or maybe tightening up somebody's form on one exercise.
yeah. But it's everything. It's just like we're not playing that game.
I'm not there to train. I'm not sorry. I'm not there to personal train.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not there to teach you how to do a hack squat the right way. If you're maybe bouncing on the bottom, like, hey, slow down, pause in the bottom, then fire up. I have no problem doing that. Like, that's easy.
yeah,
But it's like your knees are folding in. You don't know where to put your feet on the platform. You have no concept of controlling weight. That's not the time or the place.
yeah,
Which is always really interesting when someone asks to join. I'm always like, one, do you know how to lift properly? And then two, like, is it going to turn into adult babysitting for me? Which I'm not there to do. Like, I think
yeah,
sometimes like, when people ask us that, they forget that we are active competitors in a sport. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, can you ever
yeah.
imagine like going up to Tom Brady and being like, "Hey, can I run routes with you while you throw balls in season while he's still playing?" Or, dear God, like asking John Jones to spar, like, "Hey, man, can I come to your practice and spar tomorrow?" Really?
Right.
Stop.
Super true. Yeah,
Like,
especially in prep, it's just like like that's like the nice thing about training partners is Zach, or if I train with Brad, or if I train with anybody who's been a training partner with me before, if I train with you,
no.
like we train together in prep.
Yes.
Like, well, we train together not in prep. And like, there's zero talking. It's like, what weight should we do? That one. All right, let's do it.
Someone's on
You know
that
what I mean?
machine. You want to go here next? Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, I'm not gonna have energy to talk about legitimately anything else, or any explanation of why.
No, 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 100% not. No, just hard.
Yeah,
If you would have looked at me when we went outside to pull that prowler backwards and lunge, and you would have said, "Why?" I said, "Because it's fucking hard." Like, and it would have probably been in that same tone. Like, how dare you ask that?
like why would you? Because it sucks. Exactly.
Right. I'm here to test you, motherfucker. See if you pass. Go. Like,
Yeah.
it's really as easy as that. Like, I think sometimes, and I think that goes back to what you and I always bang on with these fucking nerds, is they're so busy worrying about explanations of things, they forget like sometimes it just needs to be hard.
Yeah.
Like, who cares if your dumbbell rows a touch sloppy? We got a back off set to fix that. We have warm
Yeah.
up sets to do that beforehand. We've done 3 other exercises with utter precision to drill our lats. I just need something to overload that fucking back, man, and make you sweat your dick off. Like,
Yeah.
there doesn't always have to be a 14 paragraph essay explaining why I chose this exercise because it feels good and it pumps my muscle. And
Hmm.
I think that's something you and I both did very, very well. Young is wasn't a lot of thinking involved. It was, here's the plan. I don't care if it's perfect. I'm just going to attack it blindly. And this is what's happened where I want to know with all these science kids that are now in the gym, like twisting and squeezing and logbook and all that shit, they're going to look back in 10 years and be like, man, I wasted so much time of
Hmm.
prime growth obsessing about stupid shit,
Yeah.
you know? And then, I think the bad thing is what they assume. They look around like guys like you and I, or people we may coach who are growing at an exponential rate. And they're like, oh, it's got to be on more drugs. That's it. They're pumping them full of drugs. They don't care. Their form shit. Their exercise selection is shit. And they're just hammering, they're doing 2 grams a test. I really believe that's what they think in their brain because
Hmm.
it's in my comment section of any reel
Yeah.
that's popular.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And
Dumb
it's
meathead doesn't know.
it's absolutely funny to me too when you take someone. I can't. You probably got come across this more than I have, but when you get someone who's been doing copious amounts of gear, their food's shitty and their training's like shitty, and you fix their training and you take their gear and you cut it in half,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden their physique just takes off, and you're like, it blows their mind too. They're like, this is the least I've ever taken in my life.
Oh yeah.
They're like, my first cycle was bigger than this. It's
Correct.
like, because not all of it is drug related.
Mhm.
Like, food's better and you're actually training hard.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
I've had countless dudes and women, by the way, use
Yeah.
less drugs, eat less food, train harder, and grow more.
Mm-hmm.
On paper, that doesn't work, right? Because what does everyone say? If you use the Boston Lloyd scenario, it's all drugs, and then food and training comes second and third. And that's what he'll tell you, right? If you followed any of his garbage, which is trash, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
and I have no problem saying that. People can fight me in the comments.
Yeah.
It's not. Because as you and I've said multiple times, we've seen countless scenarios of guys and girls on tons of shit who look like hot garbage. And it is what one of our podcast talks were on was less is more. If you do training and nutrition right, you don't have to eat nearly as much calories because the food quality is higher, right? So what I mean by that is instead of smashing McDonald's or Chipotle every meal six, if you actually had beef and rice, you can calorically eat less, but grow more.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, I can take your training, remove 10 sets of fluff, and you'll grow more.
Mm-hmm.
If those 10 remaining sets are perfect or getting towards perfect. You know, I don't expect everyone to go home and train like you and I do tomorrow and with the execution the way we do, because it's a
Yeah.
skill we have acquired over years.
Yeah.
But if you quit relying on things that don't dictate progress, meaning drugs, right? So I had that one post on Instagram where there was a whole 42 section comment thread where this guy's saying, hey, all you have to do is shoot drugs and you grow. You can sit on the couch and you don't have to do shit. You and I both know that's not true. But people who are natural really believe that. They
Yeah.
think all I have to do is take that pill, take that shot 3 times a week. Which in their mind, it's 1 time a week in the glute, by the way, and they'll look like Ronnie Coleman tomorrow. Or
Mm-hmm.
even you have honestly unexperienced bodybuilders who think, oh man, the key is Serostim. The first time I get my hands on one of those kits, I'm going to look like Ronnie Coleman or Jay Cutler. Guess what, man? If the foundation isn't there, you won't ever. The probability of you ever looking like that, anyways, is slim to none. It's like 0.1%.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. Just take it from the opposite direction.
Right.
How many people are prescribed stelmaglutide or something like that, and they don't lose any that much fucking weight?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Like we see that fucking daily.
Yeah.
We get these awesome hormone adaptations and fucking metabolic stress, and they're rotting from lack of food, but they don't look good.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yep. Okay.
That was actually all drugs. Yeah. Hey, just take a gander at that. Fucking
Yep.
melted popsicles of humans, and you're like, oh wow, that's weird. That was actually just drugs.
Yeah. I mean, so I'll share a fun story with you. One of the most probably genetically gifted natural athletes I ever worked with early in my career. Like, we dieted her for a figure show in 3 weeks, and she got second.
Yeah.
3 weeks, three. So she came back to me, I don't know, a year ago, and like was getting a good routine. And her business took off. She had to drop off the planet. So she messaged me. It's like, hey, Chris, like, my doctor said I can take semaglutide, whatever. What do you think about it? I was like, ugh, I was like, it will definitely get weight off. You just have to be very, very leery. And I mean, you and I both understand the mechanisms of how that works, right? It doesn't care. It just burns through shit. So she sends me her photos after taking that stuff for 3 months. I'm not exaggerating. She had no cap to her delt. Glutes were like this, no flare to the quad. Like, her scale weight was down. She was in size 2 pants, but completely ruined her physique. And she's like, I don't understand. I was like, I told you it's just going to melt scale weight and it doesn't matter where it comes from. And I mean, it isn't like she's 50, she's in her early 30s. All
Yeah.
that muscle she had built with me, gone. Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't get it back, But all she did was do that and work. And she was
Yeah.
like, honestly, it made my stomach hurt so bad. Like I'd eat like maybe once a day.
Yeah.
Look, who wants to strip down and put a bikini on looking like that? Not any woman that comes to me and wants progress. So you want no taper, you want to be up and down and a board front to back. It's terrible.
Right.
Stop it. Oh, how do we get there? Oh yeah, just inject drugs and you can grow. Like, oh. I'm not
Yeah.
saying
It's always the people like in my experience, everybody who ever says that, I would love to have a training session with them.
right.
You know what I mean? And have them realize what like my normal Tuesday would cripple them.
Yes.
Like they're gonna be like if they train legs with me any fucking leg day, not I've never had a day where it was like, oh, I'm going extra hard today. Oh, look at me, I'm doing the extra drop set because it's gonna be difficult. That's what's in my fucking plan.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't have these especially hard days. They're just I'm doing what I need to do to grow.
Right.
And I that's your money, yes. Like you take that dude who says it's just steroids, he's gonna fucking lose his shit.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And he may go home and we'll be like, well, it was just steroids. He's like, that's, but like, let's see what happens when you're sore for the next month.
Right. Yeah. I will say this. So I'll give them a little bit of grace here. I thought the power of them was going to be faster for me. I don't know how you were. I was like, when I finally took that plunge, it was like I thought I'd see like just I would transform into something crazy. Now, I will say I gained 25 pounds on the scale in 12 weeks and looked like a completely different person in a good
Mm-hmm.
way. I also held fat very favorably. So in clothes, like I looked like, oh hell yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
But like the longer I do this, I realize that yes, they do work and work well, but not as well as I thought they were going to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
It definitely is a game changer. Don't get me wrong. I don't think either of us are saying it, but it's not as you aren't gonna like do 12 weeks and then look like a pro if you don't already look like that. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It does to me and you. I don't think they'll ever believe us.
Well, it's like one of those things, right? There's not really any point in putting a higher octane gas in your car if your car doesn't have the ability to compress that and utilize it. High octane gas just makes it so your car won't combust earlier than it's supposed to,
Yes.
right? And that's all it does. So, like race gas, you can compress the shit out of it. It's not going to prematurely detonate, which allows you to compress it more, right? That's kind of what I realized. That's what you should realize what steroids are like. You're putting a higher octane gas in there, which is allowing basically your engine, which has been built to make that pressure work better. It allows you to push harder. You can turn up the boost, you can turn up the compression a little bit more, and you can squeeze more power out of that same engine.
Right.
But if you go ahead and you stick 120 octane race gas in a Honda Civic, it doesn't fucking matter,
Right.
right? Because it's not going to use anything past it. It really only needs 85.
Yeah. Yep.
It's still going to work the same. It's not going to. It's not. You're not going to magically be like, oh shit, now I'm a fucking race car. It's like that's what I think. What a lot of people don't understand is that all the things go into it. Like your nutrition is going to be like all the wheels and everything. Like, and if you miss any of that, like you could have the fastest fucking engine on the planet, but no wheels. Where are you going to go? It's just they all work together, but it's just one little thing.
It's the synergy, right? And that's what I
Yeah.
always try to like stress on people because I've seen this with guys and girls who they do everything right, but rest and recover.
Yeah.
And progress is slow. So they're sending me their sets and they're banging weights. I knew their food spot on. I know their supplements are good. I knew they're hitting their cardio, but their rest recovery is garbage. And they don't understand, like, hey, I'm not growing like I see you post some people. Like, yeah, because you're sleeping 4 hours a night. And when's the last time you took an off week? 3 years ago? When's the last time you took an off day? Every 10th day? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Hey,
then their rest days consist of them like freaking out because they're resting. Like, oh, my rest day, I went on an 8 mile hike because I was in the gym and I feel, it's like, well, we need to fix that mindset here, you know. But
what I wish I would have done is like during that prep, posted the screenshot of my steps on a cardio day, a training day, and then an off day truly. Like I'd have some off days where literally I would walk 3,000 steps total. Guess what I was doing? Eating and resting. That's literally it, and working. So, I mean, you've been in my house. So you know like the area from kitchen to my office to the couch. It's like a triangle. If I had to go upstairs to change clothes or take a shower, that'll probably be the most, or take the dog outside to the basement. That's probably the most I walked in a singular setting all day.
yeah,
To understand the importance when my food is like, especially when you get down to those like lower calorie off days, like I need to rest and prepare for the week I'm getting ahead of me. Right. And I think so many people are so short sighted in that. And it's like, oh, well, if I'm laying down, I'm not burning fat. No, but your body's healing. It's
yeah,
resting. You stress the fuck out of it Monday through Saturday with work, with kids, with training, with cardio, with supplements, all that. Hey, we need to chill. Because I realize this, and I'm sure you do too. Like I always would book my deep tissue on an off day. That's stressful. Even though it's
yeah,
helping, the kind of work we get done, your body is like, fuck you.
yeah. Oh, 100%. When you leave and the table is soaked in sweat because you're freaking out,
Yes.
your body's
Tell
like,
me that doesn't
that
cause a
was
stress response.
terrible.
Yes. I mean, you know this because you've been through it. Anytime you get your IT bands released, or like any chest work, or serratus, intercostal, getting your lat dug out, like all that stuff hurts. And it's like getting tortured for 60 to 90 minutes. You tell me
Hmm.
you're not gonna have a stress response from that? That's why I come home and fucking eat and sleep the rest of the day.
Yeah,
So it's always one of those interesting things to me is I think so many people value certain pieces of that puzzle, but I think you and I, what we do very successfully is we understand that in order to grow or progress or burn fat optimally, all of those have to work in a harmony. And if any one of those gets off, we have to get it back there to what we view as normal or
yeah,
optimal as quickly as possible.
yeah. Well, it's just like I got sick last week with a cold.
Yep.
Like there was one day where I was like, I don't feel good, and I'm
Right.
gonna stay in bed.
Mhm.
But the next 3 days after that weren't immediately like, oh, I'm gonna train legs.
Right.
I was fine, but I wasn't at the point where I was like, there's zero point in pushing my body now because it's already been pushed, and my body's job is fixing my immune system. Building muscle is well below immune system recovery,
Yes.
right? So it's like if I do both, which one do you think my body's going to pick?
Immune.
And it's just going to make it harder for it to do its first fucking job,
Yeah. All agreed.
you know? So it's
Agreed.
like, yeah, I didn't want to take a couple days out of the gym. Did I hate being out of the gym. Like, why would I
Same.
want to take an extra day? But I did it so that when I do come back, I'm not fighting a fucking immune system problem and being sore from the gym, because I know I'm not going to be able to recover from both, and that's where a lot of people get that lost is they, like I said, being stubborn in the beginning is what I honestly training 15 times a week while working construction. Like, I wonder why I put on, you know what I mean? I wonder even how I put on muscle.
Sure.
Like,
What
and just,
what you said about the sickness thing, I laughed when I was smiling only because I've fucked that up so many times.
yeah,
Like I'll never forget there was this very specific day because I've only been like really like sick, maybe 5 times in my entire life.
yeah,
And one of those, I had legs on a Thursday with the guy who I'm actually training arms with on Saturdays now. And I remember going to that session thinking like, man, I think I'm coming down with some sickness. And I was like, fuck it. You always know when you wake up, you're like, something's just off. The food doesn't sit right. You go to drink water and it's just like, it's not very appetizing or like even remotely appealing. You kind of are tired. You have like this dull, achy headache. Your joints feel a little weird. And I was like,
Mhm.
fuck it. Like, let's just go murder legs. I don't need to sweat it out. Man, it was such an awful decision. For the next 2 weeks, I was miserable. And I swear it's because I like went in the gym, got mad at it, and said, you know what, I'm going to sweat this shit out and we're going to go to the death. And I remember him looking at me like, man, you were on a mission today. And I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to pay for this. And I was right. I paid for 2 weeks of not being able to do jack shit. Where if I'd have just chilled out, took that off day, maybe came back the next day, hit arms, yeah, I might have been over it in 3 days. Instead,
Mhm.
I was a stupid young meathead who said, I'm going to beat sickness. My immune system's silly. I'm better than it. Guess what? I'm not.
Yeah.
Shocker, right? Like my
You're
internal
like,
skins are going to win.
yeah. You're like, there's already a demolition crew putting down a house, and you threw a grenade in there.
Yes. And I think like that's the theme. That's where I want to wrap this one up, right? Is you and I really wouldn't change that much only because all of our experiences, both positive and negative, have led us to this current state.
Hmm.
And I don't know about you, maybe I was like young and saw that movie Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher and like think like, oh, well, what if I really would have went back and started training with John when I started doing when I did his coaching, when I started doing his training, like what would that have changed the trajectory of my life? Like, would I still be doing what I am today? Would I be better? Like, yeah, I'm one of those things like, I really want to live a life where it's like, I don't really have, if you notice, we also didn't say regrets, by the way. We just said
Yeah.
things we may change or think would have sped our progress, which is why I think you and I can actually coach well and coach successfully is, and I've said this on this podcast before, like that's why I think you've grown as fast as you have, or one of the contributing factors is I just simply didn't let you make all those stupid ass mistakes I made in my 20s.
Yeah.
I removed those from the table. I knew better. I taught you to know better, and then you applied them. Because I've taught a lot of people those principles, they just didn't pick them up. They,
Yeah.
as you said early, they got in their own way and thought they knew better. And listen, we've all had clients who they hire you, and I really believe they just hire you to validate their own opinions. And they're going to follow their shit no matter what.
Hmm.
I'll write, eat this, and this, and they'll eat that, and that because they're smarter than me. I've said it 1,000 times on the internet. When John gave me the first training program I ever saw, there were multiple things in there that I didn't agree with. And I guess what I did? I shut the fuck up and listened. I
Hmm.
said, he's bigger than me. He's been doing this longer than me. If I want to get better, I have to change the way I currently think about things. Or at least because my thought process has always been this. What we talk about what if? What if I just listened and good things happen? And it did.
Yeah.
And a prime
Yeah.
example, I'll share this before we leave. I did not, and I will say this openly, I said it to his face, so I have no problem saying that after he's gone. When he gave me the first training program and had shoulders after chest, and shoulders were my worst body part at the time, I thought he was full of shit and it wasn't going to work. I was so wrong.
Hmm.
I was so wrong. At 23, I thought I knew better than someone who had been on the national level stage and banged on a pro card for years. But I turned that switch off in my brain. And I said, you know what? I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to do everything to the T so I can go back in a year and say, I did this shit to the T. You have to figure out something else for me. Guess what I did? I did it to the T and I got better.
Right. You're like, fuck.
Right. I was like, huh, maybe he's onto something. Actually, I've kept to my delts now. He was right. And, again, him and I sat down and laughed about that because I told him that story. And he's like, man, you're so fucking stubborn that you're like, man, I'm going to work my dick off and try to prove him wrong. I'm like, yeah. I was like, I said, I would have bet on my life that my shoulders were going to get worse. And I said, in hindsight, looking back, they couldn't have gotten worse. So, as I said, what do you have to lose by following the plan? Nothing but
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And then 9 times out of 10, if you do what I did and just work your balls off, something's going to happen. And
Yeah.
it did. So,
Well, and the nice thing is, as a coach, right? Because you followed the plan. If it didn't work, we know why.
correct.
You know how
Yep.
fucking difficult it is to follow a plan what you didn't follow and us to make changes on it?
Yes.
Like imagine if you did that plan, but you're like, I'm gonna do shoulders first and then chest. And then when he changes the program, you were not following. So what's gonna change?
Yep. Exactly right. Yeah. It's that is huge what you just said there. And sadly, I think it'll go over so many people's heads because we're on here for over an hour at this point.
Yeah.
They're like already brain dead to us just ranting and raving. Um, but rewind that little bit. That's the key. Like everything in life puts us in positions, and we have to choose what direction to go. You either go all in or you don't. And you can't truly judge something if you give shitty effort, which is why I believe in a system of percentages. If you eat 42 out of 42 meals, the probability of success is very high. If you eat 30 out of 42, I can promise you you're getting subpar results.
Mhm.
Simple as that. Sorry, the truth. I know you think Chipotle is the same. It doesn't count. It's not. It's 41 if it's Chipotle is one of those. Sorry. Eat it for your free meal. Until then, fuck off. All right, guys. Until next time, Chris, little Dave, that's what we would change. Almost nothing. See you guys.